give you lunch.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but look at me, I can do without it.
Can I get it to go at least, John?
I came in at an easy time. I think actually I joined the board around shortly before the mortgage burning ceremony at the Grant's house. And we were off to the races, but what really hadn't been discussed was that Janet had bought a fixer-upper. And so the capital campaign was born under your leadership, Jamie.
Right.
And it was in some ways a terrifying thing because we were talking about a very large campaign for what had been a relatively small organization, and we were very, very concerned about our ability to raise that money, as well as the needs for the building. And we had a lot of controversy within the arts organizations because they felt that the building was diverting funds from their organizations, and as just heard, the building would ultimately compete potentially with their organizations. But the beautiful thing about our new home is that it really has done what they set out to do. It's a good arts incubator. It's a great way to showcase Westchester artists. And I think one of the earliest events there with Open Studios continues to this day, and it's one of my favorites because Westchester's best artists. And it has been really a treasure that can't be duplicated really with any of the other affiliates easily. And then of course I think it has enabled us to take it a step further in terms of these collaborations where we've involved all the arts organizations throughout Westchester and use our building and also their venues as a way of trying to link those art organizations, big and small, together, which has been a wonderful experience, and I think has benefited all of the arts organizations throughout Westchester.
If I could just say one thing, you asked me earlier, what did I think of what had happened? This is the whole part of it I could never have imagined happening. I never would have imagined that we would get that building. It's just breathtaking to me still, whenever I walk into it.
It's still a fixer-upper.
And may always be.
Right.
But my hats off to everyone who did that.
On the other hand, we got a very early $500,000 grant from the state, Lauren. Do you remember that?
I do.
And do
it
you
was,
remember Al Piro sending flowers after he heard that we were not buying his building on Waller Avenue, but we were going to buy the Chase building. Going there with me?
I do remember going to his office with you.
And I was there, and I remember this. Was rather difficult.
He was furious.
Yeah,
He was furious. He yelled at me and
He kind of said, I thought you promised. I mean, he was sort of saying, I thought you had committed to me. And now look at you, what you've done. I mean, you turned around and bought this other place.
But after the fact, he was respectful. That's what I think. I think he respected the fact that you went forward and did what you thought you had to do.
Anyway, I used to meet with Al on a fairly, regular basis, and when he would not like how the conversation was going, he would let me know, and then I would get flowers.
Was he married to Janine?
Yes.
For a long time.
And probably this is all off the record.
Yes, this is.
Yes.
He's at the golf outings though still.
For the Arts Council.
I don't think it was my accomplishment alone, but one of the more important initiatives that we undertook during my tenure was the Diversity Initiative, which was controversial with many of the affiliates. Many embraced it and saw the need for trying to increase diversity on their boards and in their offerings and in terms of the public that they served, but many resisted it, and it was something that we had to go through a long process of education and coaching, and it was really a year-long effort, but ultimately I think it bears some good fruit.
For the Arts Council.
I don't think it was my accomplishment alone, but one of the more important initiatives that we undertook during my tenure was the Diversity Initiative, which was controversial with many of the affiliates. Many embraced it and saw the need for trying to increased diversity on their boards and in their offerings and in terms of the public that they served, but many resisted it, and it was something that we had to go through a long process of education and coaching, and it was really a year-long effort, but ultimately I think it bears some good fruit.
But it was dealing with the arts organizations and persuading them. And many on our board were worried too. I mean, people like Betty, who was worried, oh, is this going to cut into the funds for the museum? You and I, of course, had some thoughts about the Music Conservatory. And in the end, I think everyone agreed, you can't have too much arts, right? What's too much? Let's worry about it when we don't have enough.
Well, we also said that we were going to do everything in our power not to cut any funding that was going out to the arts. And we didn't. And the commitment of the board that this was an additional line off record. In fact, we kept a separate profit and loss statement, income and expense statement for the building for a long time so that we could really show that it was outside the normal accounting going on. And it was very important. Sal Campofranco was a very important part of those decisions.
Yes, he was.
It was very, very helpful.
And more generally, look at how many arts organizations we serve now versus we served 20 years ago. I mean, the number has increased dramatically. It's really been a great success story.
I remember Andy Spano saying to me that
was the capital campaign, which we
start over.
I am. My part was
Overseeing the capital campaign?
Overseeing the capital campaign, and, which was very difficult. And this is off the record, but numbers kept changing about how much we're going to raise, and I don't know if you remember.
I do. I remember Mark. We could raise about $1 million, and that was all because we were untested.
You know, perhaps that they weren't going to get their due because of buying that building. So I did work hard to bring them to get them to understand that we would partnerships and use the grant banking facility.
Then the budget morphed again when Janet had the building designated as a historic landmark, and the level of the duty of care that bar got raised quite a bit.
What year was that, Janet, that it was designated?
I think we filed for historic designation right after, in '99, right after we bought the building. And at the time, you know, there were benefits of having a historic designation. In retrospect, did the benefits outweigh the constraints? I don't know. I would say that probably it would have been easier not to have the designation. On the other hand, I mean, I think one of the things that I felt, having worked in Boston and New York, that when the arts comes in and the real estate gentrifies and pushes the arts out, I really felt strongly that this would cement an arts presence in the downtown.
And we were living through a time when all those beautiful theaters were just being destroyed. I mean, having grown up in White Plains, the theaters were so beautiful, and they're gone. So I think it's really important. Some of those could have been landmarked, and we would have a much more beautiful, attractive White Plains downtown here.
I think it's very important. I mean, a lot of what every community decides to support is for community pride. And I think that having historic designation is very important for us. I think people are very proud of that. And so I think it was a very worthwhile application. It was probably a headache. But
it was difficult. It was difficult. But, you know, getting back to Jamie, one of the things I think that Jamie did is that it's enabled us to showcase artists. And, you know, while we don't have money to give artists necessarily in big amounts, giving them visibility and giving them a forum is a really important thing. I think we've probably shown over 500 artists since the building has been ours, and that's incredible.
I want to tell a story. I've been involved, I think I was past my presidency. Maybe I had been involved for 5 or 6 years. And I've been hearing about various programs that we have been doing. One was the artists in residency programs in schools. And it seemed like a great program, but I didn't really know much about it. One day, my daughter starts in school from maybe 2nd or 3rd grade, starts talking about how they were doing, writing letters as if they were in Revolutionary War times. And I was very interested, and she told, I asked her a little bit about it, and she said, yeah, you have to make believe like you were in that. I didn't even realize what it was. And a couple of months later, there was a presentation of a program at the Arts Council, and I realized that that program that she had been involved in was one of our programs. I never even put the two together until after that. I said, wow, my daughter was the beneficiary of one of the programs. I didn't even know that it was going on, and I was the president. Minority communities that the council had not been serving. And all of a sudden, the board woke up to this and heard it from you, and you developed those programs. And those early 90s was that period when all of a sudden the council broadened its scope.
You know, Maren brought up my interview. And at my interview, I remember the interview very well because I was happily ensconced in Boston, and somebody had recommended me for this position, and I thought, well, let me just see what that's all about. My mother was in her 80s, and I thought, well, maybe I should come back home. But anyway, I remember someone asking me, what did I think the Arts Council should do? And that was one of the things that I said. I said, first of all, I think the Arts Council should move. The idea of them being on the 3rd floor of a corporate building is absurd.